on a different note, I watched your video about silver.
Yeah.
And you're right. And it's not just that it's a possibility to get wealthy with it. It's already happened. I mean, when I bought silver initially, when I bought a majority of it, it was at $9 an ounce. And, had I sold at 40 or 50, I mean, I wasn't smart enough to time the top, but I did sell a lot at 30. I mean, dude, people say, silver is being suppressed and, whatever. And people that bought at 40 are pissed off because it's at 29 or whatever it's at right now. But it already was. People are saying it's keeping up with inflation. When in 2008 when I bought it at $9 a gallon, right? I mean, at $9 a gallon, $9 an ounce. Gas was higher than it was now. So, and now it's at 30, and gas is cheaper than it was then. So, you can look at any time period on a chart and cherry pick the data and say it's doing horrible against inflation or it's doing great against inflation. You know what I mean?
It's going to beat inflation big time. The problem is people treat it like a lottery ticket. You get some jerk that watches a YouTube video of some, slaughtering crazy silver bug that's, talking about crazy, ridiculous numbers, and they go out and buy a roll of Eagles, and then they just hit refresh on the silver chart, expecting to become a millionaire. And it doesn't work like that. There's still gains to be made. I mean, I don't think you've even seen the first half of it. But, it's like any investment. You got to be smart about it.
Right. And that's the thing. People that are buying $100,000 at a time, $50,000 at a time, they're not the ones hitting refresh on the screen. It's the dude that has 10 ounces or, like you said, bought a roll of Eagles that thinks he just spent $750 on some Eagles and that he's going to be worth $50,000 next week because the euro collapses and they're going to print more money.
Yeah, that's a horrible way to invest in anything, really. I mean, I understand people that keep it as an insurance policy. If that's the case and you're worried about the dollar collapsing, then just tuck it away until the dollar collapses. If you want to make money on it, you're going to have to invest and probably get in and out of the market at strategic times, like you would with any stock. I mean, people look at a company like Coca-Cola and they go, well, if you bought one share of Coke, back in the 1800s, you'd be a gazillionaire by now. It's like, first of all, nobody lives that long, and nobody has that amount of foresight. And so, I mean, you got to treat it like any real investment. These are probably people that don't own a stock portfolio. They don't do any sort of real investing, and they think that they're some sort of guru because, again, they're following these deities, these silver deities on YouTube.
Right, and like you were saying, you don't have that long. So if you bought silver in 2008 and you say, well, if I just hold on to it for 30 years, say someone buys it when they're 20, when they're 50, so you know what's going to happen in your life that you don't know that you're going to need that money. What if it stays stagnant for 20 years? I mean, I know people that bought it in the 80s when it was at its high and just sat on it and rode that shit to the bottom. Yeah. And it's like, if they bought it in the 80s, they would still be underwater.
Well, and dude, that was the point of my last video, okay? In the 80s, okay, you saw silver, just go ballistic. And if you look at it in terms of gasoline, I mean, it went super ballistic. And it's the same thing that happened, last year, I think, when it went to 50. And it's going to happen again, but you have to keep your eyes open and look for it, because you're never going to have a time where 1 ounce of silver is going to buy 1,000 gallons of gasoline. That's never going to happen. The silver might be valued at $1,000 an ounce at one point, but the other commodities are going to rise up with it, and they're going to catch up eventually. And it's like falling in love with an investment is just the worst idea in the world. Now, I think there are people that literally love their silver.
Yeah, dude, they do. They fall in love with it. And dude, to a certain extent, when I bought it, I fell in love with it at first because, I bought a lot of gold and silver, and it doubled in a year and then doubled again after that. I mean, how do you not fall in love with it? But that's the problem, is you get in love with something and you think it's just going to keep doing this, and then it crashes on you and you're like, oh my God, it's manipulated. People sell stuff off to cover losses on other investments, or they want to pay their house off, or, and I hear these, like you said, the silver deities, you should never sell your silver. Well, what if your priority is living, and you want to pay a house off that you want to live in, or you want to buy food, or your car goes out and you need to buy a new car. I mean, that's what investing is for, right? To improve your life.
When you say you should never sell your silver, it's like these people just want to like be buried with it. I mean, is that the idea, or what? You want to use it eventually? I mean, you can't take it with you. I understand if you want to like give it to your kids or something, but never sell your silver. That doesn't make any sense. That's almost the same thing as like saying just hold on to your dollar.
Yeah, never spend your money, dude. Never, ever.
Never spend the time on money. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how it came about. I think silver is unique because it's not as expensive as gold. You know, you talk about gold, and that's not many people can afford gold, but silver, the average person can afford. And so there's kind of been this cult following. Now, I love silver. I made a ton of money. I more than doubled my money in silver, and I'm going to try to do it again. But again, if I'd never gotten out of it, I never would have realized any gains. I just would have had, a stack of coins.
Right. And did you get over 30 for it?
I sold at 29.73, so yeah, pretty close. And the majority of it I bought like down in the 12 range.
Right. I think it might go up from here a little bit, but I think essentially or eventually actually I think we're going to see it go back into the low 20s. And so I think you're going to be able to double your money again on it.
I think you're going to double your money on the high end. I really don't see it going down that far. And it's just based on bailouts. They're not letting anybody fail anymore. And, Bernanke said, we're just going to print money forever. So I really have a hard time seeing it go down that low. Especially with the cost of extraction. I think right now it's averaging like around 15, and I'm kind of guessing there. I heard that statistic somewhere. So for it to go to 20, I mean, that's getting pretty close to the cost of extraction,
Yeah, I guess it all depends too. If we have a slowdown, an industrial slowdown, and you have a lot of people that in the silver industry that no one can afford to buy anything, you're going to see the demand drop significantly, which is like half of silver demand is the industry. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Well, the other thing I was just thinking about is like, let's say if silver goes down to like $20 or $15 an ounce, you're going to see the cost of gasoline cut in half too. So it's also, a purchasing power thing. And I get stuck in that trap of saying like, oh, well, it's going to go to X, Y, and Z amount of dollars. And then you kind of convince yourself that those dollars are still going to be spendable in the same way, but it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Right. And if it still is the same, and say silver dropped to 20, right? But gas dropped to $2 a gallon, and you sold your silver, and technically you realized a loss in U.S. dollar amount, but you could purchase more stuff with it, it's really still served you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, I forget who it was. Someone was analyzing the price of oil versus the stock market. I think it was like Don Harold or something. And if you look at it, the price of oil and stocks and everything, it's all going up, but people get excited when they see, that big 6-digit figure in their 401k, and it's like, oh, everything's right with the world again. But then you look around and everything costs twice as much. So, you gotta be smart about this. So I'd say sell your silver, whenever you want that money, when you got a use for that money. Or if you're not going to sell it, you're hoping for the dollar to collapse. Don't pay attention and wait for the dollar to collapse.
Right. And real quick, I want to clarify something I just said, that it would still serve you if silver went down to 20, but the cost of goods went down with it. It really actually wouldn't serve you. It would have been better to hold on to the dollars in a deflationary period, because if you had the $30 for that ounce of silver versus the 20, you could buy more gas with it. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick.
Well, yeah, it's going to preserve your purchasing power, but there is a time to hold dollars. As much as I hate the dollar, I can't stand paper currencies. It's useful, There is a time to hold it. So I mean, why the hell not? It wouldn't make sense to go take your paycheck every single week and cash it directly into silver. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Right, because a lot of people that are buying silver, they're spending. They're fairly paycheck to paycheck, and they take whatever they have left and put it into silver. And if silver drops, they end up having. I know I've heard a lot of people say they had to sell some silver to get their car fixed. Well, then maybe you should set aside. If you've got $100 at the end of every week to invest, maybe you should put $25 in dollars, or $33 in dollars, $33 in silver, and 33 in food and water or something, but these guys put it all into silver like it's a religion.
Yeah, that's not healthy because you really end up in a bad spot. And I can just picture these people looking at their screen like when we had that big $7 drop, from the high 40s, and it just kept going and going and going. I mean, I could see people like sitting in front of their computer screens, literally crying. Like, don't put yourself in that position, man. I mean, long-term savings, long-term investment, or if you're going to play it. But, don't put money you need into silver. That's one of the worst things you can do. You're setting yourself up for massive failure.
Yep.